Dave from the Redneck Garage. Well, you're probably thinking to yourself, Lord, Lord, not another video on the frame. Guess what? We're getting close to being done with all the frame repairs. Today, I received in my 2 safety cap rails that fit under the transfer case. Originally, I didn't think I was going to have to replace those, but the frame was in such poor condition, I'm going ahead and putting those in also. So I got to cut that out, put them up there, test fit it, and weld them up. Now this one's a little bit easier than the control arm, trailing arm brackets that we just did, because there's not a lot of stuff you have to take off the back side except for fuel lines, brake lines, and vapor return line. However, thankfully those are so rusted I'm replacing all those too except for the fuel line, so not a lot to do there. I'm going to go ahead and get started on cutting the frame rail to put this new one in. Alright, so I got my control arms in and they fit, so it's lined up well, which I was a little worried about, but the bolts will go in just fine on the control arms. Super cool. And from Moore's 4x4, I got in my new safety cap rail here for the driver's side house special. So this is going to be fun. If you work on Jeeps very long, you'll realize that there's a bunch of crappy, stupid things that Jeep did that make no sense. One is they use metric and standard fasteners, which drives you crazy sometimes. And the other thing is they use inserts a lot of times, like on the frame here where the steps go on. Now the problem with that is once they start rusting, these things will just spin once you put some good torque to them. So I'm going to have to take my cutting torch and cut all those stinking things off so we can get to the frame itself, and then I can tap and weld new ones on or just weld them on. You know, I haven't decided on that yet. But I'm going to cut them off with the cutting torch. Woohoo! Looks like one of the things they did do right was put regular bolts on these underneath, which they're not seized up, and I can just zip the bolts off of the transfer mount with my Milwaukee Impact, which is a beast. This thing is the beast. Lord have mercy, this thing's got some torque. Now I'm going to go over to the other side and take those off, and this should just allow this to drop down since there's no motor in there. And just when you think it couldn't be any more of a pain in the butt, right, it becomes more of a pain in the butt, because these are the factory bolts, and if you have a rusty TJ, you can forget getting these bolts out because they just spin. Now there are some procedures to get up there and do them and all that from some guys on the web, but basically at this point I'm just going to take a torch and blow them off of there. Then we'll be ready to go. Dang. Alright, I got the skid plate out. And I got some jack stands underneath the transmission. So that's cool. It's just basically sitting in here with no engine in there. It basically is loose to start with, so no big deal. Exciting. And you can see that this is what I've got to cut off, this bottom section of this rail here. One thing that you need to do is you go ahead and mark the center line of your bolt on the top of the frame in your 3 bolts so you can make sure that you can line it up pretty close to where it's at. I'll mark it with a Sharpie and a square, and then I'll take my sawzall and just make a notch here, because you might grind off accidentally your marks, but you're not going to grind off a pretty good little groove right here that you're going to cover with welding anyway. So I'll mark those now. Alright, I got the frame cut out, and let me tell you, this was a pain in my butt. The old repair, you can see they used a pretty substantial piece of steel around the edge of it right here. You can really see it, where I had to cut through this piece, right, and then I had to cut it off the top portion where I cut through, and that was a pain in the butt. And let me tell you, this thick metal will take care of some of your expensive saw blades, that's for sure. I went through a ton of saw blades on this, but I got it cut off. Now I got to clean it up, grind it all down, get all that rust off, clean up around the body mounts, and then we'll be ready to stick our frame mount up and take a look at where it's going. Awesome. Okay, got it all cleaned off. For the most part, I'm going to spray a little rust prevention on the bottom section. Of course, the top I got a weld, but I'm going to set it up in there and see how it fits. Alright, that's what it looks like installed with some clamps on it, and it looks awesome. I'm going to be welding here in a minute, but I'm going to take this back off and flush out this one corner because there's still a bunch of crap and junk up in there, and I forgot about it until I put this on. But you can see that it's flush up against the frame here, and then it's flush up against the frame here, and the only places I had to really adjust, had to cut off here because of this safety cap, and I had to trim a little bit underneath here. It was hitting on the weld, wouldn't allow it to go all the way up. And down on this end just a hair, but other than that, man, this thing fit like a glove. And I'll be tacking it in here in just a minute as soon as I clean out that one spot, get all that crap out. You can see up in here there's still a bunch of crap left over from the frame where it was just rotted out, so I'm gonna get a hose and just hose that out really well right in here, because there's still a bunch of shit, a bunch of junk up in there. Look at that. Wow. And what we want to do is make sure this baby can drain. Okay, and I'm ready to go ahead and start tack welding it in there. This part is the first part that I've got squeezed together on the frame. And then I'll work back to this back section and then work across, but it's flush on the bottom at the front and at the back. See, you can see where that lip goes up against the bottom of the actual frame, so we know that we're on there all the way that we need to be. You need to make sure that you cut out enough for going across the bottom, at least 1 inch, inch and a half, before you put it up there, so it's got enough room to flush up against the front and the back. But this baby looks awesome, so let me start tack welding this in here. And it's about time for a beer. Okay, so this is the driver's side, and as you look back, all the frame has been replaced from the front to the back past the control arm there, and the front portion is in good shape. That frame's not bad. The place where it rusts out is where that water settles down, so do yourself a favor and make sure to rinse your frame out once in a while. And I'll be drilling actually a couple drain holes in this portion. In this curve here, there's already an extra drain hole that wasn't there from the factory. So I'm tickled with this. This looks awesome. A lot of work. Alright, so awesome. That is going to conclude the frame repair on the Jeep TJ. Now, what you won't see is the other side that I have to do. No reason to film that because I've already done this side and they're basically the opposite. The safety cap rails are unbelievably awesome. There's no room for error. They're already fabricated. Just put them up there. Make sure you measure where you're going to put them. Weld them up, man. They save the frame on this truck. One thing that I would say is that's really what you get when you get a truck from up north that's never had any maintenance done to it. I mean, that's the problem with this truck. Is whatever idiot owned this, never ever washed the frame, never ever painted everything, treated anything. They did do that one repair on the driver's side, which made it more difficult for me. Anyway, I'm tickled that we've got the frame repaired. We do have some rust treatment and things to go over. Internal frame, external frame. But we're going to be moving on to like brakes, front end components, lift kits, a lot of cool stuff coming up for the Jeep TJ project. Once I get the other side done, which you won't see or hear me cussing, it will tend to start moving quite a bit faster once I get the frame finished. You know, that's just this is just hugely time consuming. I knocked out that center section today in probably 4 to 5 hours maybe of continuous working on it. Burned up a bunch of saw blades because of that real thick metal that they had welded on there, but it's tacked in there and ready to finish welding on it. So frame's done, so I'm happy about that. I'm going to be ready to move on to something different. I am so dirty and greasy and grimy. I'm going in to take a shower, but first, here's what I'm going to do. It is freaking beer time, and this one's for you, Jerry. Michelob Ultra for the fat man. David from the Redneck Garage, keep turning wrenches. Oh, good beer.